to the University Centre Somerset podcast. Today, we're going to be talking to Dr. Sean McGlynn. Sean is the author of many well-regarded history books, including Kill Them All, Cathars and Carnage in the Albigensian Crusade, and By Sword and Fire, Atrocity in Medieval Warfare. He regularly contributes to various publications, such as History Today, The Spectator, and leading academic history journals, and he is an elected Fellow of the Royal Historical Society. In addition to your notable academic work, Sean, you teach at Strode College on the History, Heritage and Archaeology degree course, and also spent 10 years lecturing at the OU. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you very much.
We're here in the beautiful Abbey House in the grounds of Glastonbury Abbey in the heart of Somerset. And as we're in Somerset, let's mention Somerset Day, which is coming up soon. Can you tell us a bit about the background of Somerset Day, please, Sean?
It's generally set on May the 11th, and it commemorates the history of Somerset. It goes back, really. We have the great victory of Alfred the Great over the Vikings in 878. And of course, King Alfred was famously in the Athelney Marshes, where he recouped and was at a low ebb, on his uppers, as it were. But then he rallied his troops and pretty much, for some historians, saved England that day by being able to defeat the Vikings, because Wessex, of which Somerset was part, was the only kingdom left standing against the Viking onslaught. But also the date represents 973, when King Edgar was crowned at Bath Abbey, and from some historians he's regarded as the first king of all England. So there's a very redolent past with Somerset and its history going all the way back and indeed up to the present.
And we celebrate it now as a celebration of our Somerset identity and uniqueness. In this modern day and age, where everything is very high-tech, why are people still so interested in history and fascinated by it?
In part, it's because often in the past, things were done so differently, so radically different, it seems almost strange, the famous saying, the past is another country. But at the same time, we all want to know where we come from and to understand where we are. So if we study history, we get a sense of that, the continuities, the changes. But history is ultimately the study of human nature. So by looking at how things are in the past, we see similarities with people in the past and ourselves, because human nature doesn't basically change. Beliefs, ideas, technology, the rest will be transformed, but human nature.
Here in Glastonbury Abbey, there are many links, for some, between the Abbey and King Arthur. How was this link come about?
Yes, well, Somerset does have its legends, especially with King Arthur. So in 1184, the Abbey at Glastonbury was severely damaged by a fire, and the abbot at the time, or a little bit afterwards, discovered the tombs of Arthur and Guinevere, and that enabled lots of people to come on pilgrimage or to be actually tourists, as it were, to the tomb. Tourist industry back in Somerset even then, and so it created a lot of money for the abbey, which is what they needed. It's a bit of a cynical ploy, perhaps, and also the King Richard I, could associate his monarchy with someone as grand as Arthur, so that enabled him to have greater prestige for his dynasty. So all this myth came up then, and the ideas around Avalon and the rest of it, which is very much celebrated still today.
And is it thought that when Arthur and Guinevere were discovered, that there was a stone on top which had the quote, "Arthur, here lies Arthur, the once and future king"?
Don't know. I did teach Arthur. That's a cut. Eric?
There was a cross on top, but that once a future king comes in later.
Yeah,
as a translation.
Yeah, answer to that. There is some doubt over the veracity of the tomb inscription, but again, as I said earlier, it was a bit of a ploy to get people interested to visit.
And money making,
not just for the abbey, but for the town as well.
Yeah,
more people come in. Same as today, tourism.
And did it work?
Yes, Glastonbury flourished and became one of the wealthiest abbeys.
So the abbey creating that link with King Arthur was a bit of a stroke, a marketing stroke.
Very fortuitous.
Yes. You've worked on multiple documentaries. What's it like bringing history to life on screen?
It's actually very intense because the production companies have their schedules which they have to keep to. But at the end of the day, the editors will decide what goes in, what is left out of the final product. it's unlike writing where you have more control over it. I taught them and can see it through to the conclusion. You have to do your bit and hand it over to the producers. But I find, certainly with the European companies, that they're very keen to get at the truth and they want to create an understanding. And the point about all that is it gets people interested. So it creates a nice virtuous circle because people get interested, study more, and then it increases their understanding. So it's a very useful way into history, and as well as being very entertaining. We all need to start somewhere.
Absolutely. And your specialism is medieval history and medieval warfare, to be precise. What do you think would surprise people most about medieval warfare?
A number of things. Possibly for some people it would be the professionalism of the troops. The idea that they almost fought as a hobby has long been discounted, but still can remain popular. These are very, very highly trained professionals. They spent their lives dedicated to it. But the other thing is, despite it being fought in the past, so long ago, there's so many similarities with warfare today. During the fall of Yugoslavia, watching the news and the siege of Sarajevo, the besiegers were transporting their supplies and shells up the mountains and the hills around by donkey and horses. So some things don't change, and they're trying to starve the city into surrender. Again, very standard procedure of medieval warfare. Similarities are there. One of the differences we can see today is it's often a drone or press of a button. It's not clearly true. Doesn't cover all of warfare. Back in the day, there was no such thing, and it was very upfront and personal. It was hand-to-hand fighting. It was just absolutely horrific, and to put yourself in that situation is really quite terrifying. So it's amazing how these massive battles and wars were fought at such a constant level all the time.
Yes, it's always astonished me how prepared people were to get involved. And I'm sure there must have been some coercion that went on.
In some cases, yes, but there's as much carrot as stick. People will be paid. In the era where there's grinding poverty, to be paid with something, but also the lure of plunder as well, which was when you ravaged a city, plundered a city, you could take all the booty from it and get rich on it. But also for some people, it was a change from their environment, a bit of excitement, travel, see the world,
Yeah.
and fight. So.
Yes, in an era where life must have been very local.
Yes.
Many people.
Absolutely.
The opportunity to travel must have been wonderful.
Yes, but also at the end of the day, it comes down to money.
Yeah, as do so many things. And in your research into medieval warfare and the medieval period, what is the closest you've come to a real wow discovery moment?
These things can just come along. So one of my moments for that was the rather contested field of Robin Hood studies. I was never a Robin Hood scholar. I wasn't looking at Robin Hood, but while I was researching something else entirely different, some evidence came up which pointed to a character I think is actually instrumental in the development of the Robin Hood legend. I'm not saying he's the original Robin Hood, but in the development of the legend. And I just thought this character, he fits all the bill for Robin Hood. So I investigated him further. So I've written about him, and I have another article published in a scholarly collection coming out in a year or two on this chap. But it was a real, this makes sense. And the wow factor of that was I wasn't looking for it. It just happened. And I thought, well, I've got to write about it, because if I don't, someone else will, or even worse, this character will be missed. And it fits the time, it fits the context and everything very, very nicely. Also, perhaps not such a big wow factor, but it's just learning to understand, because that's what history is about, is understanding. So another one would be on Richard the Lionheart. Now, Richard Lionheart was king for 10 years, and famously or infamously, he was only in this country for a few months. He spent all his time abroad. And historians and others have criticised him for not being a king at home. But again, through my research, I could show that actually by fighting his wars abroad, he kept England peaceful. Because when he died, we had King John on the throne. We studied King John at the college. When King John was on the throne, the French came and invaded England, and all the fighting was done in England. So Richard was doing the right thing. So we can get to understand afresh new developments in research that way.
Yeah, so potentially, had Richard been in England and fighting all these wars in England, he wouldn't have the reputation that he has today.
No, not at all. And with that comes all the expenses of warfare that bankrupted the country and the like. But he was caught coming home from the crusade in prison. The country could stump up a huge fortune for him. And it was expensive, and the wars are very expensive, but the alternative was worse. It's cheaper to fight in France than it was to fight in England, because your whole infrastructure is being damaged all the time, and the crops are being destroyed, you can't go to market and that. So it's understanding things like that, getting behind the, not necessarily myth, but misunderstandings of history. It's always great when students pick up on these sort of things and realize that actually there's a lot more to it than this, and it's more complex. And with that comes a real satisfaction in knowing and understanding the subject.
Yes, yeah, I agree. Let's talk a little bit then more about that course that you teach on at Strode College, of which I am an alumni, the History, Heritage and Archaeology course. Why did you choose to teach on that particular course?
We do a lot of medieval history there. We teach history, heritage and archaeology across the board, from the Neolithic up to the modern period. My specialty is medieval, and sometimes it's quite hard to get access to medieval courses. You have to travel for them. But coming back to Somerset and the history of Somerset, the Abbey and Arthur and Alfred and all the rest of it, it's such a perfect location to study medieval history and archaeology and indeed heritage. So that helps. But the nature of the course also makes it really enjoyable with small, friendly classes. We can all talk openly and have really, really good discussions. There's loads of scope for that. So that makes it more enjoyable.
Yes, I really enjoyed studying at Strode. And one of the things I really loved about it was the variety, not least history, heritage and archaeology, but also the variety within those particular aspects of the course, and the history being such a broad range of dates that we studied, and also having access to specialists in all those different areas. It was wonderful. We've talked a little bit about myths as well. We've talked about King Arthur. Do you have anything to say about how that might relate to us in this modern day and age?
Well, we're no different in that today people are just as interested in creating myths and distortions as they ever were in the past. It's all about trying to justify your position or promote your side. We spent a lot of time in the first year looking at sources through the ages from medieval up to modern times, and we can see that people have an agenda. And so the myths and legends of the past have just been recreated and still being invented today. There's a famous line from John Ford film, when the legend becomes fact, print the legend. And that's what we still do today.
Yes, indeed. So if a student were to start this course in September this year, 2026, what should they expect in the course?
Fun, in one sense, because the interest creates fun. We're very low pressure, but there's not the intensity of elsewhere, because I say small classes, everyone gets on and mixes, plenty of room for discussion and for interpretations. It's not anything prescribed. You're not taught a view, you're not taught a certain way of looking at things. You're encouraged to think for yourself. People come with their own life experiences, and that can feed in, because as I said at the beginning, human nature stays the same. So we need to be reminded of that. So small, friendly classes, informal atmosphere, very accessible tutors and lecturers, and in a lovely part of the world as well.
Absolutely. I would concur. Very accessible tutors and lecturers, and enjoyment from meeting other people studying the same subject with whom you can have really in-depth discussions and learn how to understand what we're going through in the world today through the lens of history. And as you say, human nature remains the same.
Absolutely. And students enjoy the talking. You talk with the other students and interact with them, and you bounce ideas off each other. And then you'll feedback then in the class and say, well, I thought this, but my fellow student here thought something different. So we're none the wiser, or we come to the conclusion that this is most likely to have happened.
Yeah.
And so much of it is about interpretation and understanding. It's not about just finding a definitive answer all the time. And indeed, a good question is as important as a good answer.
Yeah, absolutely. That stimulating discussion which enables you to think in a different way about a topic.
Absolutely. And students like that. But it's amazing how after the 3 years, the development and how sophisticated people are thinking by the end of it.
Yeah. When I was studying the course, Sean, one of the things that I really enjoyed about it was the fact that we have so much history available around us. And I appreciate that that's the same all around the country. but here it feels very special. It feels very accessible. Can you say something about the way that the college utilises that those wonderful resources around here?
Yes, well, we have very close to us all these things. We probably have more than a lot of other areas in some senses like that. So we have connections with the Avalon Archaeology and, of course, with the Abbey here. We're in the Abbey House today in this glorious setting with the beautiful views of the Abbey. We have lots of students working in the heritage industry around here when they leave us, so Rural Life Museum, Taunton Museum, and places like that. So there's lots of students who go on to work in the local area. Lots also go on to postgraduate studies. It is worth mentioning, but proportionately, we probably have more people going to postgraduate studies than a lot of most higher education institutions. But they can do that as well while working in the local industry because everything is so local. And there's Wells Cathedral and the Bishop's Palace. People have students who've worked at Bishop's Palace and in yourself.
Absolutely. And of course, the archaeological digs that we went on when I was at college, we've been able to go to a Roman villa and have a look at that and learn a bit about archaeology in that practical sense.
Oh, yes,
That
yes.
was such fun, isn't it?
That is a real practical element to all that, absolutely.
Yeah.
And we have done lots of trips as well abroad to different places in Europe in the past, which cover the history, heritage, and archaeology, all the different elements. But here it's so rich in Glastonbury that it's and Somerset. We have established connections. We've been going as a course for something like 17 years or more. So over that time, we've established a lot of local connections.
Yeah.
And
you've implanted your alumni into all the local heritage institutions so that you can keep feeding us.
it's all part of a master plan. Yes.
Thank you very much.